it, and then
Call me when you're, text me when you're ready to stop.
Wow.
we'll do.
Just let me know, we'll be right with you.
Just let me know when it says you're live.
You're live now.
We're good to go.
Okay, ready to go?
Thanks, Brian. Bye.
Dave, okay. I'm going to call to order the January 25th, 2021 regular meeting for the Tipp City Board of Education, and we will start with the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Dave, you can call roll.
President Dunaway,
Present.
Vice President Zakor,
Present.
Mrs. Dahl,
Here.
Mrs. Heatherly,
Here.
Mr. Patrick.
Here.
All present and accounted for this evening, Madam President. There is a quorum tonight.
Great. Looking for an approval for the agenda.
I motion.
Can I get a second?
Is this the consent?
Yeah, we just do the
No, this
consent.
is for the entire agenda.
Oh, the entire, yeah, the whole agenda, and then the consent thing is.
If you want to pull something out of the
8.
consent agenda,
The consent
just
is 8.
say it now.
I'll second so we can talk about it. How's that? Isn't that what we need to do? We need first and
Sure.
second,
Yes.
now we can talk about it.
Corinne, we have a motion. Do you want a second?
Yes, I'll second it.
Okay, so we have a, oh, you were second.
Mrs. Heatherly has already seconded it.
Awesome.
So sorry, the motion was Zakor and the second was Mrs. Heatherly.
Heatherly.
Okay, so is there any discussion for the approval of the agenda?
There is something in item K that I would like to specifically talk about.
Okay, so we can pull
Item K
out.
under the consent agenda.
We can pull item K out and put it under new business item E. Does anybody else have anything from the consent agenda that needs pulled?
I don't need anything pulled, Madam
Okay.
President, but I'd like
Yes.
to recommend an addition.
Sure.
We had a COVID emergency over the weekend, and we have several sporting events coming up this weekend, and we need a substitute announcer.
Okay,
We have somebody with announcing experience, but he's not on the game worker list.
perfect,
So we just need to add another name on the game worker list, if that's okay with the board.
perfect.
Okay, his name is Luke Zirkle.
Okay,
He's
so
one of
we'll
our
add him
teachers.
to item I, Dave. Luke
Yeah.
Zirkle goes under I for game worker. And it's Zerkle. Oh, it's right there, sorry. Thank you for already having it in there. Well, thank you for being so helpful.
He's a speed typer.
I didn't realize he did it that fast.
All right, those, is that everything that,
I don't know, does anybody else have anything to pull from the consent? We're good?
And the only other thing I'd like to request, it's not moving anything,
Mhm.
but I'd just like to, I ask if it pleases the board, if I can move item A from the superintendent's report just to the beginning of the meeting. It has to do with some of the items that the board members found at their seats when they came into.
Okay, sure. So Dave, we're gonna move item 11A up to, where do you want to put it, Mr. Stefanik?
Well, if you want to, if you need to officially move it, you could call it a committee report.
Okay, put it under, it'd be 2B. Does anybody else have anything?
you said that's
2B,
11,
2B would be board member recognition,
11A is becoming 2B.
correct? Anybody else? Dave, when you're ready, we're ready.
Okay, just to recap, approval of the meeting agenda with corrections to move consent agenda item K, TEE grant acceptance, to new business, and adding to the game worker list in consent agenda I, game workers, add Luke Zirkle. Also to move item 11A, board member recognition, to item 2B.
That's perfect. So you can call roll. It was Mrs. Zakor and Mrs. Heatherly.
Zakor,
Yes.
Heatherly,
Yes.
Dahl,
Yes.
Dunaway,
Yes,
Patrick.
Yes.
motion carries. Item 2A, committee reports, Miami Valley Career Technical Update. Thank you once again, Russ Gilmore. He always does a great job. One of the things that he really wanted to highlight in his minutes was he was really impressed by a cross-curricular assignment that was done with Mrs. Wheat and Mrs. Sutton. And he went into a lot of detail, and that seemed like a really wonderful experience for the staff and students. From what I gathered from that, it seemed like maybe a new thing that they were doing, and it was very successful. So I always like when he kind of gives us those academic background stories, and it's really nice. So thank you, Russ, for a wonderful job once again, and thank you to Miami Valley CTC for being such an important part of, of what we offer our students in Tipp. Okay, 3A, citizen comments. We have a citizen comment tonight?
Excuse me,
Oh,
2B.
Oh, sorry, we added 2B. That's right. I'm sorry.
That's all right.
I didn't refresh my page. Thank you,
That's
Joellen. 2B, Mr. Stefanik.
Yes,
I need to refresh.
January is designated as board or board member recognition month. And in celebration of that, we had our schools prepare gifts for the board, and you do the math. We have 5 schools and we have 5 board members, so it works out really nice. And those gifts are in front of you in the nice wrapped packages. In addition, you were recognized by the State School Boards Association for your service to Tipp City. So on behalf of the school district and all of its employees and all of its students, on behalf of the city, on behalf of myself, and I'll include Dave and Steve and Liz and everybody else involved with the district, thank you for your willingness to serve and lead the district. And we would like you, even though you love the wrapping jobs, we would like you to open your gifts so you can see the talent at our buildings as far as creativity. Not to spoil the surprises, but again, we have 5 buildings. We gave them parameters, and you should have 5 unique creations.
Okay, so you really built this up. I'm just gonna rip my own. I'm so excited.
This is like Christmas.
I love student stuff. Oh, I got Elsie's all. So mine says, we cannot always build the future for our youth, but we can build our youth for the future. Franklin D. Roosevelt. Oh, that is so beautiful.
Oh, this is so cute. It must be all their thumbprints. This is
Oh, my
beyond.
gosh.
Oh, look at yours, Joellen. What is that?
Let's see everybody.
Oh,
Oh,
nice.
my
You got the Broadway.
gosh.
Let me see the Broadway.
Same
Oh,
quote.
but yours has like a little artist thing on the back.
What is that Simon at the
About the
front?
artist. That is so cool.
And Mrs. Williams was very adamant that it be very random. So she mixed them up and then
my
placed them
gosh.
at your respective.
Let me see yours, Anne. You're the
This
We
is
would
so
like to
nice.
take a.
Oh my gosh,
Don't mind. Holding your.
Oh, my
You
God.
can stay in your seat and I'll come to you.
We'd like to get photos of all of them.
So I'll do one at a time because I have an idea of how I want to do it, and then we'll do a deep dive.
Wow, that is very special.
That is awesome.
They're all awesome.
Oh, yours is beyond precious, Bruce. I
Oh
love
my
that.
God. Can you line up and show them all together?
They are going to my one
Yeah, there's gonna be a group photo.
That will be so
Okay, that's why I
gorgeous.
was saying.
Oh, wow.
They are so
I
gorgeous.
didn't see that one.
That is, I love the thumbprints.
Yes.
That is so cool, the
This is so
thumbprints.
cute.
Dave and I built the frames.
Oh,
I'm actually smiling. I don't even know that.
Is there a little jealousy over there that I'm hearing? I keep smiling.
Yeah, all the creativity is out in the school. It's not here. It's definitely not here.
Oh, neat.
Okay, now we'll get a group shot.
where do you want us to stand?
Let's just do it right here,
Okay.
so that our audience can see.
Corinne.
It's beyond cute. You can see all the thumbprints.
Darling.
They're like snowflakes.
You want us in front of the desk?
Yeah,
Yes,
come out in
please.
the middle if you can make it. Training, come this way.
Okay.
Already got the wheels moving.
They're not easy to get started.
Let's put them all in a certain
Since you're all
level.
masked, if you don't
Yeah,
mind
what's the-
standing together, that would be
Yeah, what's
terrific.
the best way, Liz?
We'll just, I
Let's
think
get back and get line with Simon.
that
Oh, you can
actually,
switch this way towards me.
Mrs. Heatherly, you need to go a little to your right. Perfect.
That's, okay.
Okay, everybody look this way and smile because you actually can,
How can you
wow.
tell?
you can tell, you can see it
All
in
the
their eyes.
smize. Did anybody watch America's Next Top Model? Oh, you smize with your eyes.
One more for good luck. Thank you.
That show's still on?
Yes, my daughter still watches.
It's been on for
I don't know, she could be
1,000
watching reruns, I don't know.
That show's been on for like 1,000 years. Oh, I know all about it.
You snipe. This is so precious, beyond precious.
Okay, did I just?
What a wonderful quote too. Who chose the quote?
We all got the same quote?
She did a great, yeah, I think they're
Oh,
all.
wow, very cool.
We cannot always build the future for our youth, but we
Yeah,
can
we all
build
have
our
the same.
youth for the future.
I have a question.
Nice.
Who do we thank? The entire, how do
Well,
we?
we each got a building, so mine's LT Ball.
I know, but
You
who?
could thank the.
Kristen, LT Ball.
We've got a creative bunch here at the central office and they work together and I think they all put their ideas together, but it all landed on Kristen's desk
Oh,
and she
I
coordinated.
mean, I
it,
just would like my
Along with Liz
appreciation to
and
get.
Carrie and
Yeah.
all those creative people.
But all the creative people would tell you to thank Mrs. Williams and the individual school from
Okay,
which you received your gift. I love
okay,
it.
thank
So
you.
This is great.
she came up with the end goal
very cool.
and followed through with guidelines. So
It's fantastic.
thank you.
And I think she was the originator of the mint
Yes.
Yeah.
slogans.
Yeah,
with
that's-
mint
and that's her
of all the work,
penmanship,
so that
so
was very good.
Thank you for allowing
So-
me. That was so nice.
Thanks, Lil.
Yes, thank you.
So again, thank you
Okay.
to all five of you. We appreciate the work you do for us, or with us.
With us,
With
yes,
us,
I
yes.
love that.
With
That's
you.
right, with us. Okay, so item 3A would be citizen comments, and we do have one citizen comment tonight, which is Michelle Blake. So Joellen, do you mind if you close to the door? Thank you. Oh, we pass it down to Dave Stevens, please. And that goes to Dave. Thank you, girl.
Still enjoying my
Oh.
Christmas.
Ann's gonna re-rank it.
Yes, I am.
Then she can open it again later.
There you
I
go.
don't get gifts very often, so this is special.
Hey, Michelle.
You want her to stand in?
Dave, will director, Dave already wanted to stand.
Just-
If
just
you
come
would like to
forward a little
come
bit.
forward, right at the corner of Steve's desk there, we'll look at your back.
Just up a little
Oh,
bit, a little
really?
bit, a
On
little
camera?
little bit more. Well, you'll just be like,
There you go.
right there, there you go. There you
Okay.
Thank you.
So Michelle, you have 5 minutes, and Dave is usually our timekeeper.
Yeah.
So he'll tell you when to start, and then you'll have 5 minutes.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, so first of all, before you say start, I just wanted to say how great you look, Steve. You're an inspiration. Dave, I meant, sorry. Okay, so first of all, thank you for allowing me the opportunity to speak this evening. My name is Michelle Blake. I live at 957 York Meadows Drive in Tipp City. I've lived in the community for 24 years, and I'm a mother of 2 children who've attended Tipp City schools. Over the last few years, I have become increasingly concerned with some decisions made by the school board. However, I will limit my remarks to the decisions made by the current board. I will speak specifically on taxpayer money used to engage with attorneys without full board approval and a lack of transparency, the egregious comments posted on social media regarding the library that are untrue, and lastly, a plea from the community for fairness and respect for each other when in this room. I contemplated writing a letter, but it has become clear to me over the last year that the only letters read during the meetings are letters that support some board members' positions. As board members, you have a responsibility to listen to all residents, even if you personally disagree. Numerous letters were written in support of the library, but they were dismissed because you said they all sounded the same. I find this ironic because you read letters that supported eliminating open enrollment, which, by the way, all sounded the same and used some of the exact same words. Is this transparent, consistent, or fair? Some board members repeatedly complain about what's being said on social media. Have you stopped to ask yourselves, why are people utilizing social media? It's because they don't feel heard. They do not feel that some of the decisions you're making are in the best interest of our kids. And notice I said some, not all. In fact, many people feel that some of the decisions are based on personal agendas. This is what should concern you. It comes down to a lack of trust. One reason there's a lack of trust is because some board members' complete disregard for request of transparency to the rest of the board when reaching out to attorneys. You were so concerned about money in the summer when you cut the teacher's aide positions, tried to eliminate a nurse during a pandemic, and debated the cost of mental health services for our children. But you're not concerned about engaging attorneys who charge hundreds of dollars an hour? Please know that the citizens of this community support the policy drafted by Mr. Patry. Speaking of Mr. Patry, I want to take an opportunity to provide appreciation from not only me, but many Tipp residents who thank him for his diligence in making sure that the residents are heard. We are grateful for his willingness to listen and his knowledge of the law. Ms. Secor, every time you feel the need to belittle Mr. Patry and Ms. Heatherly, you are belittling the citizens like me of this community that agree with him, and many do. We can't seem to understand why some board members have an issue with the board acting as a board when engaging attorneys, not as individuals. The library is a perfect example. Taxpayer money was spent when it didn't have to be. But it isn't all about money. This goes back to trust. Your reasons for contacting the attorneys, putting the library on the agenda without notifying the library board or the director is an example of this behavior that gives the perception of personal agendas and lack of transparency. Has anyone reached out to the library board or director to apologize for false statements on social media? That the library wasn't following the law? Ms. Secor, you're concerned about false information on social media, but you're the one spreading it. The people of this community are passionate about the issues that affect our school, and we expect you to focus on those, not the library. This is why you had protesters in front of the board office. Requesting someone to call the police on peaceful protesters and the library board saying they were trying to bust into the building was ridiculous. The protesters literally stood in silence with their signs and never tried to enter the building.
30 seconds.
It amazes me, Mrs. Dahl, that after that you're afraid of the library board and the protesters when you yourself have been a protester. A citizen wearing a holster talking about violence against the board members in the same breath requesting Mr. Patry to resign was thanked by this board. But you're scared of the library board knocking on the door, wanting to know why they've been waiting an hour? This is ridiculous. I'll wrap up. As a fellow board member, because I have also sat on many boards within this community, I understand the time and commitment that's required. I truly appreciate all of you giving your time as a member of this board. This is a great opportunity for this board in 2021 to come together and work for the betterment of our schools. The community wants you to listen, be fair, and do what's best for our school, the children, and the teachers. Our children and teachers are watching. You are setting an example for them. They expect and deserve better. Thank you.
Thank you, Michelle. Number 4A is TCEA comments, and there are none for tonight. 5A is president comments. There are none tonight. That takes us to 6A, Dave, monthly financial report.
Okay, looking for a motion to approve the monthly financial report for December 2020.
I'll make the motion.
I'll second.
Motion second by Mrs. Dunaway and Mrs. Dahl.
From a discussion standpoint, Madam President, just going to restate that I will be abstaining from this because I don't approve on unaudited monthly financial reports.
Okay, Dave, anything that you would like to add?
Give me one moment. Okay. Just wanted to make mention that in the month of December, open that up, just to make sure I'm saying it right. We did receive our portion of the large $5 billion rebate that the Ohio Bureau of Workers' Comp provided to all local and all governmental and private agencies that pay workers' comp dues. And our portion of that was about $165,000. So that was well appreciated. I'm glad that the governor put that notice out. I did receive a notice today that said over 20,000 businesses have not cashed their check yet. Mine was in the very same day.
Oh, wow. That's a lot.
Yeah, it was millions of dollars still sitting there. So anyway, So that did occur in the month of December, and we should not expect more checks like that.
Right.
To Mrs. Heatherly, last month, she asked about the interest, and just to continue, yes, yes, it is
Going down.
4 cents on our Fifth Third investment. Let's see if I can find anything else here. Are there any questions or anything in particular that I might be able to point out for the board?
No, I love that little thing that you always do with the explanation. That's so helpful.
I was wondering if you could go into a little bit of a summary on the expenditure notes about the payback that we'll be making for our advancement.
Sure. So for those that aren't aware, the district receives a monthly foundation report. It's actually twice a month. We receive our foundation money from the state of Ohio as our portion of the state taxes. And a part of that money, we also receive funding for students that aren't from the district. So this is where our open enrollment money would come from as well. Since we did not participate in open enrollment this school year, we weren't supposed to receive any open enrollment money. However, when the first few months of fiscal year 2021, when the funding was received, the state was still using student counts from last school year when we did have open enrolled students. And so they provided funding to us based on last year's numbers. And in all of my monthly reports, I have noted that this money should not be here and that the state would come and ask for that money to be refunded to them. And the month of December, it actually started in the month of November. December just continues that. Instead of taking it all back at once, they're spreading it out for the remainder of the entire school year. So we will see these reductions from our monthly payments all the way through June of 2021. So, and in the end, the net effect will be $0 were received for open enrollment funding this school year.
How much are we paying back?
38,000.
It says 38,000
a month.
Yeah, I believe it's about 18,000 something and change that they take twice a month for a total of.
16.3 each month.
Where are we seeing that?
It's almost right in the middle of your second bullet point,
Okay.
starting November 2020.
Oh, I'm in the wrong section. Yes, as a negative 16.3 thousand until the $134,000 we have received between July through October. When that's paid back, we'll be done.
Okay. And what does it mean that both of these reductions are offset by the BWC?
So because we had that negative revenue coming in, I mean, we would have normally seen our revenues be down from this month compared to the prior 2 years. But because we got this unexpected BWC refund, revenues were actually higher. And so those reductions were offset by the receipts of the BWC money.
And that BWC money, though, is a one-time thing as a result of COVID and the premiums being higher than the claims.
Correct.
Has nothing to do with open enrollment, just happened to be, we got lucky.
Right. It's all in other. It's all rolled up into other. That is correct.
Since go ahead, Joelle, did your question get answered before I ask one?
No, I was just,
I was talking about the wrong section, I think.
Well, she was on purchase services.
I was on expenditure notes.
Oh, yeah.
And so I just wanted to also note about the expenses for PLP
Oh, yes, thank
That
you.
was my question, so thank you.
and what are the anticipated expenses for the next semester?
Okay, so we did record a $400,000 expense for PLP charges, and that actually covers us for the entire year.
Great.
That's not the normal price. We ended up getting a deal, but we shouldn't see any additional charges that I'm aware of. And so Mr. Stefanik saying that we're not going to, so.
Yeah, we are allowed to share licenses. And so any students that came back into the school district for the second semester, those are usable licenses. And so if other students decide at some point that they want to go to PLP, we can take those shared licenses and reassign it to a new student without any additional new license charges.
So that was my question, the purchase services with the 401,000, because the new quarter started Monday. So how did that work out? Are we the same? Did more students go to PLP? Did more come back in person?
More back in person.
Okay.
Mr. Veerhoff, you got some numbers or?
We had
Because
about
we do it
60
quarterly.
we had about 60 kids who returned to in-person learning.
Okay.
I think we have 239 students who are remaining in the full-time online option.
So
Great.
some of the newer requests for PLP at semester time were actually specifically COVID related. The virus had impacted households and there were some immunocompromised situations. And so the family said just for peace of mind and safety at the home that they requested their child come out of school and go to PLP.
Okay, great.
So this 401,000 is a new cost for the district, is that correct?
This was the known cost for doing.
For this school year.
Yeah, online
Yes, for
learning.
this, it was a new cost.
Yes.
It was a first precedent for the school district in terms of this online.
Type of program.
Of this,
yes.
okay. And so we don't, in terms of the open enrollment, we also don't have in here what that may have looked like had those students elected to go to PLP, correct?
No, it wouldn't be reported here.
Okay, so correct, so we don't know what that would have looked like. And we don't really have any data in here in terms of revenue notes as to what costs may have been reduced or eliminated as a result of a reduction from the 30 plus open enrollment students. Is that also correct, Mr. Stevens?
Well,
In other words, we know cost going in, but we don't reflect on here the cost per breakdown per student to educate expenditures.
I have not broken that down.
Okay, thank you.
And that question presumed that there is a savings associated with eliminating open enrollment. Have you determined to be the case or either way?
I have not determined that, and I have not spent time determining that.
Yeah, we can just probably go off of what the CUP report says, where they do calculate both incoming and outgoing funds.
PLP, it was a fixed cost regardless of the number of license that
No,
were purchased,
it was
or that was
based on
based on the estimate of what we've needed based on the assessment. We did a survey of how many people wanted PLP at the onset of the school year. That's how we factored in and purchased all those licensure rights, correct?
Yes.
And that came out to $401,000.
So what does that average out like roughly per student,
It varies depending on,
what they're enrolling in?
yes.
What
Elementary versus high school versus.
Okay.
Okay, anything else in the monthly financial report?
I have nothing more on this month's financial report, but I will say that Mr. Stefanik and I did receive a letter today. The state's budget has been redone for this year. They've determined that the budget cuts that they took in May of 2020 that carried over to this school year was a little extreme. And so the foundation money that we received was cut, and they've determined that they did too much. So they're going to adjust our foundation revenues. We will see higher collections throughout the rest of the school year, starting in February.
Okay, great.
Do they indicate how much?
They did not. They just said
That's
that
great.
what was once, I believe it was $300 million cut or $380 million cut is now down to about $100 million.
140.
That's a big difference.
Yeah. So
We'll take it.
So that'll
After
be-
the 401,000 in PLP licenses, we'll take whatever we can get.
Don't we also get Medicaid reimbursement?
we always receive a Medicaid reimbursement, yes, but I think that has already been refunded this year. I can't recall, but we do usually receive a reimbursement from Medicaid between $80,000 to $100,000 for the services that we provided in a previous school year.
3 years ago.
It's actually, they've been catching up. I think my last audit was the 18-19, so
Great.
they're getting closer.
Mr. Stevens.
ESSE too.
The ESSER money, yeah. So also, if the federal government has released some additional COVID money, it's called the Every Student's, it's ESSER is the acronym for it. I can't recall exactly what it stands for. But based on preliminary numbers that the state is releasing, it appears that the district will receive roughly $500,000 to $575,000 of additional COVID funding that will be used for COVID expenses until, I want to say, July 31st, 2023.
Wow.
So there's still an application process that has to be completed. In the end, they'll base it on the number of students that we have enrolled. And it's also based on the Title I allocations. So the dollar amount per pupil varies from school district to school district. And so ours, I believe, was at $198 per student. So some school districts have their per pupil amount is $2,500 per student. So, yeah.
I have a quick question under where you have the, what page is this? Where you have it listed by the years.
Yep.
2021 has under personnel services, I'm assuming this is salaries.
Yes.
It goes down. You're anticipating it to go down this coming year?
No, that's actually explained in the second page after that. It says personnel services for December 2020 are slightly lower than December of 19 because substitute costs in December 2020 were down from the prior year due to high school and middle schools being closed while students were on remote learning. So last year in December, we had higher substitute costs.
Flu season.
Yep, because we had people out, we were going to school, and then we didn't have any subs being used at the two higher school buildings because we had stopped educating students in the buildings after Thanksgiving, all the way through the end, to the start of the new school year, or the start of the calendar year.
Okay.
So.
Thank you.
Yep.
Hey, did you see in 510, I think that's supposed to say coronavirus? It says coronavirus, which is an
Yes,
awesome
okay.
airplane. It's like one of my favorite airplanes.
510.
510, it should say coronavirus instead of corona cirrus.
I apologize, I don't know what 510 references.
I'm on it's Tipp City Exempted Village School District Financial Report by Fund as of December 31st, where you have the funds
gotcha.
listed 001 all the way to 599. So if you look at 501, it says coronavirus, 510.
Coronavirus, got it, thank
It's
you.
weird that spell check didn't catch it because that is an airplane, so that's why your spell check didn't catch it. Anyway, sorry.
Mr. Stevens, I have a question for you. On page 3, investment income report, I realize the rates are down. However, when I look at those first 4 entries down to Fifth Third Securities Money Market, if I do the quick math, it looks like roughly $15 million. Am I understanding that correctly? The investment income off of roughly $15 million is $1,386 for that month?
That is correct.
That's not good. I mean, isn't there other investment options? I mean, I'm just,
Not really.
it's a lot of money.
It is a lot of money, but unfortunately, as a public district, our risk factors that we're allowed to invest in are very small.
So you only have so many, okay.
That is correct.
Thank you, I get it.
And so the items that are further down, those CDs, those interest rates are higher, but that's also because we purchased those in 2017,
Right.
18, and 19. And you can see the one that we purchased in September of 2020 is a low interest rate.
Yeah.
That was the best that they were offering at the time.
Wow.
We probably haven't done it in the last year, but I know that since I've been on the board, that Dave has found other options for investing.
Yeah.
That yields a higher return of interest.
I mean, that's just painful. $1,300 on a $15 million. Just
We're back to 2008.
Yeah.
That's what
Did
it
you
is.
switch us, your big thing was when you switched us to Unity.
Yes.
When you did all that big switch to Unity, and man, we really saw the benefit in that.
We were able to invest in a money market account through Park National is what they are now.
Yeah, Park National.
And I was able to
That was incredible.
move the money around as needed to realize the higher interest rates on that.
And they also charge lower bank fees than what we were seeing from the previous bank, and so we were coming out ahead.
And then my next question is on page 7. This would be under revenue, the very first line, general property taxes.
Mhm.
Why is that down almost 8 million?
Oh, that's just how the collections come in.
Okay,
And so we're expecting we've received one of 2 payments. We'll see the other payment coming in the month of February and maybe early March. I'm expecting all of those for the general property taxes and the public utility personal property, just to all be good
okay.
when those monies come in.
So that was just a timing reflective of that month.
That is correct.
If you recall, last month, that's what we authorized him to do, which was to tell the auditor to release the money as soon as.
Right, as soon as they.
Give it to us as soon as we can.
Okay. And finally, thank you very much for your footnotes on revenue and expenditure. It's very insightful, and I
Always.
appreciate the time you put into that.
Always fun to track it down.
Yeah.
But again, I mean, a lot of these that you'll see, they're either one-time receipts or timing issues only. We are very consistent.
Okay.
The COVID year has made it a very strange year, but even through all of that, we've been able to try to keep business as close to normal as we can. So, and still get our kids educated, which is what our job is.
Thanks, Dave.
Sure.
Any other questions on A? Dave, ready for a roll?
Dunaway,
Yes.
Dahl,
Yes.
Heatherly,
Yes.
Patry,
Abstain.
Zakor.
Yes.
Thank you.
Motion carries. Item B, approval of the fiscal year 21 appropriation amendments.
I'll move.
I'll second, moved and seconded, Heatherly and Dunaway. Does anybody have any questions or discussion for Dave?
We just had two
I was just-
adjustments, very small.
Okay,
I will add, so we did receive another local grant from the STEM group, which has been booked in here. But we did receive notification from the federal government that our special ed IDEA-B grant funding, they did a reallocation and they did reduce our grant down. They took away $14,500. So we had to reduce the allowed appropriations to be spent from that fund with that reduction. So most of the money that we receive in that grant, 516, you can see that the appropriations this year are set at $741,000. Most of that is federal salaries for special ed teachers. That's all I have there.
okay. Any other discussion? Dave, ready for the roll?
Heatherly,
Yes.
Dunaway.
Yes.
Dahl.
Yes.
Patrick.
Yes.
Zakor.
Yes.
Motion carries. Item C, then and now, approval of the ORC 5705.41 purchase order certification. Then and now, fiscal year 21 for December 2020. I'm looking for a motion in a second.
I'll move.
I'll second. Moved and seconded, Mrs. Dell, Mrs. Dunaway. I see that it's the bus repairs.
Yeah.
7,000.
So we actually had these bus repairs I spoke with Mrs. Nadolny about this, and she indicated that these repairs were being done under warranty, but it didn't cover everything. So she was waiting for the warranty coverage to come back and say, we're going to cover all of this, or we're not going to cover some of it. So that's why there's a difference between when the service was done and when the PO was done. I think in the end,
It only took 2 months, which is pretty fast because sometimes insurance claims can take even longer.
yeah,
So September 30th to December 1st,
I believe that
that was pretty quick.
I believe that the warranted amount was $6,000, so I believe the initial was $13,000, and then we only had to pay $7,000 of it. So.
Okay, well, thank you for that. Any other discussion? Ready for the vote, Dave?
Dahl,
Yes.
Dunaway,
Yes,
Heatherly,
Yes.
Patrick,
Yes.
Zakor.
Yes.
motion carries. Item 7, old business. I have an item under old business, Mr. Stefanik, because we are doing Under new business, the supplemental contracts. So I'm just gonna throw this out there for you, being a new superintendent. The beauty of it is you've worked in many different school districts and they're all different. That doesn't mean anyone's right or wrong, they're all just different. So one thing that I've always been a huge advocate for is surveys. I think you already know that about me. I'm all about surveys. But they have to be anonymous. A survey, if it's not anonymous, to me, it's a waste of time. One thing that I haven't seen since I've been here in 6 years is surveys for our student athletes and parents of our student athletes. And that's a very touchy subject because the chain of command says if you have an issue, you go to your coach. If it's not resolved, you go to the athletic director. You know how the chain of command works. But that first step is really scary for a parent and a student athlete because nobody wants to go complain to a coach and then, you know, your biggest fear is, oh my gosh, my kid's gonna be benched now. It's a legitimate concern for any school, any sport, anywhere. It's just, that's, whether it's school sport, travel sport, that's just the nature of the beast. So I think one way to kind of show our community that we do care and that we hear you, we're listening, tell us what's going on. And the best way is to, at the end of every sporting season, have a survey for the athlete, have a survey for the parent of the athlete. And if you want to go the extra mile, you could go to the students who just graduated and say, hey, just give them an open-ended survey. What were your, in the 13 years or whatever, however many years you were in our district, what was the most amazing thing about our district? And you might hear things about their kindergarten teacher that they always wanted to say but never had the time. Or they might say, they might give us awesome information we can take to the teacher who probably wouldn't have even had the opportunity to get that information. And then also they might say things, you know, like, but this was a concern. But I just think that that information is valuable data. And if possible, whatever, you know, you're running the show now, as a parent, I hear a lot of parents, they just have a real struggle with making that hurdle of, I want to come forward, but it's very scary, especially right now with COVID. The kids who just graduated and the current kids who are getting ready to graduate in May, all of our athletes, because of the COVID situation, the scholarships are really the same scholarship dollars are being spread amongst more students. So now it's even more, you know, concerning for a parent to come forward because athletic scholarship money is extremely important to our community members and nobody wants to really risk jeopardizing that money. So it's just, I just wanted to throw that out there under old business.
Well, I don't think that's a bad idea. I guess the fact that it's anonymous, then what do you do with that information if you can't investigate it?
Well, I mean, that's for Mr. Stefanik to decide. I mean, you know, it's hard because nobody wants to say, oh, you know, this happens or that happens or, you know, X, Y, Z, because then there's always a fear of retaliation. So,
Well, I just think when you know, then you're supposed to do something about it. So I think that puts the district in a precarious situation because you can't fact check the information because you can't trace it back to who wrote it.
I think
I'm
there's
not suggesting it's not a bad idea.
Right,
I'm
sure.
just saying that when you inherit information, then you're supposed to do something with it.
And I think, you know, when you get, I mean, I'm not a superintendent, so I don't, you know, have any background on this, but having been in situations like this where I dealt with employees, if you get 4 people that say the same thing, it might be, you know, if you have one random thing, it may or may not, but if you have 4 or 5 or 6 or 10 people that all say the same thing, I think that's probably something that would Warner looking into. Why not Warner Garner? So
Yeah, so
You know what I'm saying.
surveys may not give you the actual data to be able to investigate, but surveys can show you trends. And so you can look at, you know, whether the majority of folks feel like they're having positive experiences or if they feel like there's some things that need to be improved upon. So you can study those. And then again, with surveys, everything doesn't need to be you know, punitive in nature. It could actually be used as information that could be used for a growth plan and an improvement plan for, and this doesn't just go for coaches, it could go for classes and extracurriculars and co-curriculars and all the above. So we started surveys, in the district. We've sent out a couple. We've got some strategic plan-based type surveys coming here in the next week or so coming out. We're trying to make sure that with the surveys we are sending out that we space them so the parents don't feel like they're getting homework assignments and get, they become disengaged. We want them to be engaged, so we don't want to give them too many all at once, but we are spreading those out. And athletic surveys and exit surveys for seniors are not uncommon. And so they could definitely be things to be considered here. And it's by season. Usually, there's a process where the surveys occur and then that information is given to the athletic director and or building principal, and then they work with coaches to make the experiences better.
Yeah, and I'll just give you a quick example. For instance, if 6 people say, our practice is always from 6 to 8, but he always keeps us till 8:30 every time, and my son has missed his work shift, every single night because he's 30 minutes late leaving practice and he can't get to Menards on time. It's very easy to say, hey, Mr. Kramer, can we talk to Coach so-and-so about getting the kids out on time? Because some kids have to be at work and they're late consistently, they're going to lose their job. Just easy things like that. These little easy fixes just show our community that we're engaged, we're listening, we care, and we're here to make the best experience for our students, period. It's simple.
I totally support that. And I think that the 2 categories, especially athletes, because it is a selective process on many teams. And there can be, whether it's intentional or unintentional, bias and create retaliations or retribution. So I think there needs to be that safe space to get in there and analyze that. And the second area that I think is really great is the graduates.
Mm-hmm.
It's like an exit interview.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like those could be really great starting points. And the anonymity with the sports, I see that also creating part of that safe space, because when you're reviewing that data, like you said, if 6 replies come up interfering, practice times, or I'm just using that as an example, is lingering beyond, and it's interfering with my ability to hold a job or whatever, and there's probably some credence to that if you're seeing that repetitive, input. So in that case, anonymity is not really as important as getting to the core of what the messages are from that. So I think it'd be a great idea to try and implement that. Is that something that can be executed with no cost?
That I don't know. The strategic plan ones, yes. I found some national templates from some education associations that can be used, and so we can modify those and make them Tipp Cityized, if you will, and personalize it. So we're looking at those as a starting point.
And maybe Mr. Kramer used them in his previous districts, you know what I'm saying? That, who knows, so.
Okay. But on the athletic surveys, would there be that, can that be done without a cost? Can it be done internally, or I don't know?
That I'll have to research. I know in previous districts I've been involved with, they've already had the surveys in place, and so I don't know if there was an initial cost to get access to the templates, or if those are out there, to be used.
Have you been involved with any districts that do that?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay, so it is.
I just haven't initiated any myself. They were already in place when
They
I
were in
got there.
place. Yeah. Okay. Have we ever done that here?
Not since I've been a board member, no. Mm-mm.
I've only been here 6 months, so
I've only been here 6
I haven't seen it yet.
There's a lot of good PDs you can sign up for, and I do Google Forms all the time, and your information is definitely reflected in the quality of the question that you ask and how you ask it, and then the follow-up with it. Like the first couple times I sent Google Forms before meeting to get some information, talk about. You have to walk the walk. If you say we're going to do this for an improvement and we're going to do it for reflection, we're going to do it for refinement, then that's exactly what you have to use that data for. Otherwise, you'll never get good data again. So it's just really a lot of front loading of the people you're gonna survey and the people that are being surveyed, so that it creates a climate of, we're gonna do this together and we're gonna use it to improve. And that's okay. If we find mistakes, that's not a problem. That's just an area to improve.
Well, and that's actually what's going on, some of that very information, those conversations are going on because some of the information we received back on the calendar surveys are going to potentially create some recommendations to the board that are different than the calendar that's expected to start in August of next year, because the calendars are 2 years out. The calendar for 2 years out, there are some new recommendations based on survey information, and that's what we said. We might, or not me, but others involved on the committee, they might be used to a certain thing because they've seen calendars come and calendars go, in Tipp City for several years. But the parent and staff information we received off the surveys is taken in a little bit different direction.
And our community is changing. We have all these new houses being built.
Right.
So we have hundreds of new families, potentially moving here, and our community changes. So it's important that we do these types of things because we want to always be, doing everything we can for our community members, staff, and students.
Sure.
Well, I'd like to make one other push for the reason I think it's important. I don't have the really finer numbers, but going back to sort of ties in with open enrollment. We have X number of students, children that are entitled to come to our district, but several, I think 50, or maybe it's a little higher, have chosen to do other forms of education. And so I've always said, build a better mousetrap, circle back and find out why they're not electing to go attend their home district. And I think some of these surveys might help flush some of this out. Because, retaining the students that we have that live here, I think is equally or more important than recruiting students from outside of the district. If we're truly going to be service and responsive oriented to our taxpayers. In other words, I don't want someone's child or children not attending these schools because they don't feel they have a voice and they just feel frustrated and there's nowhere else they can go within the district. So they just say, the heck with it, I'm going to choose this form of education and not deal with it. I just feel that when you're up to that kind of number of students, 50, 60, whatever it is presently, they should be listened to. We should understand why that's happening. And by the way, that doesn't include the parochial schools, because that's not tracked by the ODE. So it's a respectable number of students, in my opinion.
Anything else under old business other than my survey question? Okay. Item 8A, consent agenda. Looking for an approval of all consent agenda items. A motion and a second.
I'll move.
I'll second.
Moved and seconded by Mrs. Zakor and Mrs. Dahl. Go ahead, sir.
Just real quick discussion on item B. I'm going to be approving it, but the approval is conditioned upon it supplemented by the video and that it reflects a nuts and bolts recapitulation of the meeting.
Okay. Dave?
I missed who the second was.
I think it was
Ms. Dahl, sorry.
Dahl and
Dahl.
Dahl and Zakor.
No, Zakor and Dahl.
No, Zakor was
Or
first.
Dahl.
Yeah.
Sorry, Zakor and Dahl.
Okay.
Ready for the roll, Dave?
Okay, Zakor,
Yes.
Dahl,
Yes.
Heatherly,
Yes.
Patrick,
Yes.
Zakor.
Dunaway. You forgot Dunaway. It's okay.
Dunaway.
Yes. Motion
Turn my
carries.
brain off, sorry.
Motion carries for all consent
Stack of the
agenda
ballot
items.
box. Ms. Zakor gets to vote twice.
That takes us to new business, item A, which is the 2021-2022 program of studies for the high school and middle school. Looking for a motion and a second. I'll make the motion.
I'll second.
Mrs. Dunaway and Mrs. Heatherly. And we're going to open this up for discussion.
Can we
Go ahead, you start.
I was just gonna say,
We both
what-
started.
I was just gonna say, when we start, can we stay on one until we're done with that book
Sure.
and then move to the other?
Okay, we'll do the high school first because the high school is first on this. Okay. Is there any discussion on the high school program of studies?
I do have some.
I have some too, so go ahead.
It seems like a lot of classes were added.
You stole my question.
Yeah, and so I was just wondering if somebody could speak to how this is gonna
I
work.
think you mean electives, right? With the electives? We added a
Well,
lot of electives.
Yeah, I think they're electives.
Yeah.
However, if a student is in a track, calling an elective, I'm just wondering how we're going to offer all these with our current staff, how we're gonna staff some of these. Seem like some of these AP options in particular seem very rigorous. And I was wondering if you could just speak to the process behind this.
I could start with the piece about staff. All or both programs of study were created with no additional staff members under consideration. They were supposed to look at the offerings that they could make with the staff members that they have in-house. And so that's the overriding piece. Some of the additions were additions that line up with a new pre-apprenticeship program that we're investigating with Sinclair and Wright State.
Sinclair and Edison.
And Sinclair and Edison. And some of those are there. There's at least one class that is just a title change, and the class was just modified a little bit. And so that was in different colored ink, but in essence, it was just a programming change, with the title change. And then, Mr. Verhoff, do you want to talk about the fine arts pieces that are in there as the new classes?
Yeah, one of the ways that the high school is looking at how to offer these electives, more electives to kids, and offer more choice is to offer them every other year. So if you notice in some of the descriptions, it'll say offered in odd school years, even school years. I think throughout the course of studies, it says based on enrollment. There's, I only believe, one AP class being added. I think there was mention of AP seminar and AP research as potentials maybe down the line to give some kids planning. Because those are courses where you need to take multiple APs, and it's not necessarily a class, it's more of a PBL type approach and cross-curricular approach to your APs.
Okay.
Kind of building upon what Mrs. Dunaway highlighted in the CTC report and trying to build in some of those cross-curricular opportunities. As far as the pre-apprenticeship program, we're looking at pre-apprenticeships in law enforcement, healthcare, advanced manufacturing. These are programs that are going to provide kids with real work experience. Kids who maybe didn't make that choice to go to the CTC. And so we've developed some courses that were either already in existence and beefed them up a little bit, or added things like intro to criminal justice and partnering with the Tipp State Police Department and other agencies in the county and Montgomery County to provide some background in criminal justice and see if kids are interested in that law enforcement pre-apprenticeship, almost like a screener class for those opportunities.
So those classes that are those like intro to criminal justice, are those going to be taught by a police officer, or is that going to be taught by somebody? So
Still taught by our staff.
So how did you buy a curriculum for that, or is that something that's going to be developed
It's something
in-house for
that
that?
we're developing with the police department.
Okay,
So that'll be an in-house development.
okay,
Even AP psychology, we had already purchased a book that could be used for AP psych in preparation or in thinking that if there's interest with that, we could go down that road.
And there was in discussions with the high school, there were two or three of these classes that were discussed in 1920, but they were phasing in the implementation of the classes so that there weren't a bunch of AP offerings coming online all at the same time. And in one of the classes, they did not have a credentialed teacher back in 1920, and now they do.
2020?
No.
The 1920 school.
The 1920 school year.
Oh, I'm
No,
sorry.
yeah.
Yeah, okay, so not the roaring, not the roaring, sorry about that.
And that was CCP government. So the other thing that
Good one, though. I like that.
the other thing that we're trying to do, particularly at the high school, is expand our CCP offerings on our campus. You know, and something that we've talked about with the principals is that we have to give kids a reason to want to be in our building. Otherwise, they're going to pursue opportunities outside of our building. And then that creates a whole host of other problems
Right.
that we don't want to deal with. So trying to be proactive and developing programs that are going to the kids are going to want to be in our buildings, programs where they can earn college credit, programs where they can earn work experience or gain work experience. That is really kind of the challenge and the mindset of the program of studies here and what the high school was tasked with doing.
That ties into what I just said earlier about the number of students that live in our district. We've got to find out how to keep our
Correct.
students engaged here
Yep.
with our school. It's no different than a hotel chain competing. Give the best guest experience that you can. And I know some school districts actually refer to their students as guests.
Yeah.
And so I totally agree with you on that.
And at the end of the day, we're going to look at the enrollments and see what kids sign up for. And if we have classes that we can't run because there's not enough enrollment, then we won't run that. You know, and we adjust from there. And that's things we did even when I was high school principal. There was a year where we didn't run Civil War, and I'm sure it broke Joe Bellis's heart. But when you only had 6 kids sign up and you had maybe 30 kids in an American history class, you can't justify that.
Have you guys considered maybe putting a minimum number of enrollment on the course so that it's really evident? You know,
Kind of ties in with my question.
you need a minimum of 7 kids to justify a course. I understand that sometimes you just need a class because you need a class. Like, I understand that.
Right.
But just so that it's really clear to parents and everybody that you have to, like, we can't, just because 2 kids sign up, it's, you know, and maybe even though you have 8 kids sign up, that we can't offer that class because scheduling is it's running a train station. It's like, you know.
Yeah.
Just because a lot of these look really, really great, you know, but it's a lot.
Yeah.
And I think that parents need to really understand that just because it's in this book doesn't mean their kid's going to be sitting in that class.
Well,
That kind of
exactly.
piggybacks on,
Yeah. and
piggybacks on the email that I sent to Mr. Stefanik was, you know, I'm thinking of one course in particular, I'm not going to say the name, but I think we had 6 or 8 students. So to me, if you only have 6 or 8 students, kind of like your Civil War example, you know, so how, as a district, how have we audited the new electives? So in the last couple of years that I've been on the school board, we were adding all these electives, but I haven't seen the audit. You know, how many kids signed up for the new partnership that we've created with the University of Cincinnati? I don't know if 2 kids are in that or 20 kids are in that. We've never gotten any follow-up information on that. So it would be nice if, you know, when you give the school board these programs of studies, if it would come with the audit of here are the electives, and we could say, wow, I can see why they don't do that class anymore. There were only 12 kids that took it all year. That's not an effective use of our staff.
And I think sometimes though, just to be balanced, if you're going to start a new program, it's really, you have to understand that your first year might be 5 kids in a classroom. And that if we're going to invest in a program, we have to be willing to maybe do a 5-year. It helps us support better when we hear the whole story. Yeah, we only had 5 kids sign up. We don't think we did enough information centers. We're going to do a big push this year of explaining how this program can benefit students. We're doing some advertising, communications,
And other students talk about it.
and other
And
students
kids
talk
go, how
about it.
did you get signed up for that? Oh, you, and then they, yeah. word of mouth.
Yeah, so, you know, those things.
And then also my other question was, that I asked, was how do we establish kind of what Corinne already said, if, you know, does it take two kids coming to the office and saying, can we have a class on outer space? And then how do we make sure that it fits into our curriculum? Right? Where is it fitting into the curriculum? Because that's what we do.
Yeah, I believe in conversations I've had, and you can refresh if you had some earlier conversations or more extensive conversations. I only know of one class in this listing of new classes that was brought on initially by a student saying, man, it would be nice having this. And so they did an investigation of that. The rest of them is based on the pre-apprenticeship development and or coming up with more AP or CCP opportunities for the students. And those seem to have a lot of value, especially in a district where there's high performance. AP opportunities and CCP opportunities are coveted. And so as you're looking for a sequence or more opportunities in those areas, that's what I see the majority in this new course listing this year.
Don't our counselors play a role in helping students get on the path so they know what classes then to take? And some of that might change throughout their 4 years, but I think we need to help recognize that you gotta make sure the kid's on the path that's going in the direction they want to go.
Yeah, and I don't know the exact number, but in conversations that I have and with the effort to have more CCP classes available on site, you know, at the high school, I know in the 3 Ohio districts I've been involved in, I know that there are a lot more than one of the districts that I was involved in, because I know they only had 2, maybe 3 teachers in the entire building that were running CCP classes, and the students were getting in cars and heading to the local college because there weren't that many online opportunities at the time. And so they were leaving campus. And so with Tipp having, you know, the multiple opportunities right here in the building, that's a positive for the students, their experience at the school, and their ability to get CCP credit at the same time.
Does anybody else have any comments on the high school?
Yeah, some of it said successful completion of a course as a prerequisite. By successful completion, do you have a letter grade attached to that?
Typically, the departments will meet and look at either a C or higher, or, you know, if a kid, I can remember conversations where a kid maybe had a high D, but they really pushed at the end of the year and there was an interest in that class, then we would look to get them into it.
So is that successful completion something that we can put in the book, or just so parents, everybody understands what successful completion is?
Yeah, I think that is something we could look at adding. I know,
And of course, you can always have your asterisk.
absolutely.
You know, like you don't ever want to say something is a never, you know.
Right.
There's always situations. And then some of it said, a couple of them, I'm trying to look for the one, said application required. Is there a pre-approved application for a class? I'm trying to look.
What page are you on?
I'm probably with the yearbook.
No, journalism. Is there a journalism class now? Maybe. No, Inferno. Inferno is not yearbook, right?
Right.
No, Inferno is the writing class with the poems and the.
So I think it said application required. Is that application available in here? Because I think it's really fair to.
I don't believe that it is.
That's a good idea though, because why would it just put it all together?
You could publish the link.
Yeah. Put a link.
Yeah, or even just a disclaimer saying a application available upon request, or application can be reviewed upon request.
Does the application change?
I don't believe so.
Do they have to be given? Is it like here's an application, we invite you to apply, or is this?
I believe that the student, at least
The
in my
student just has
experience,
to ask?
when I was principal, student registers for the class, the counselor would either give that or the teacher would give that application to the student.
And what is that application process? Is it just the teacher reviewing it or is it a
Usually it's a
department?
group of teachers, department.
Okay. I think that, just to be fair to parents and students, it would be nice if that application was included and maybe a little description of the process.
Yes, I agree.
So, Steve, would it be assumed that, I guess the reason for the review of the application would be if there's more students applying than seats available?
Yes.
So, I mean, we wouldn't, our goal is obviously to have everybody apply and have a seat, but sometimes that doesn't happen.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct. And we're not, unfortunately, we can't run multiple sections of the,
Right.
we can't run multiple
Right.
sections of.
Yeah, we only
We
have
have
so many,
one.
we only have so many teachers and so many
Right.
periods in the day, right?
Yeah, I have no problem with an approval or an application process. I just think that we should be as clear as possible with it.
Yeah, and with that application, does it go by seniority? Does it go by grade? Does it, how are we deciding who stays and who goes? That's fair. So, Mr. Stefanik, I appreciate when we first got this document, I kicked it back to you
Yes.
because just grammatical errors, all different fonts. My first 5 minutes, so I appreciate you giving this back to whoever you give it back to and the cleanup. It made it a lot easier to review. Different fonts was making my eyes cross every 5 seconds.
It was a system that multiple teams were providing input to a site. And they were bringing things in, and so it just needed some time to look at it from start to finish and bring it all
Right,
together.
because we don't let our students turn papers into their teacher like that. I mean, when you turn your paper into your teacher, it's assumed that that's the final product. So when someone says to me like that, I'm not going to spend 5 hours of my day.
Right.
When I spent 5 minutes, I found 5 mistakes in 5 minutes. And then the other thing is, if I do approve this and I don't see the final product, what if the final product looks like the version that wasn't? So for future reference, it would be nice if the board could get the professional version, because that's what we're expected to approve.
Yes.
I'm not going to approve something and then say, oh, they said they were going to clean it up.
Right.
That's not a good way to work. Anybody have anything else on the high school? Okay, so we will move over to the middle school program of studies. I like how they do theirs. I just like the layout. It's nice.
Well, it's a lot more simplified in the
Yeah.
middle school setting.
Yeah, it's a lot like, yeah. Yeah. Simon, do you have a question? No? Okay. Anybody? We're good? Anybody?
I guess I would just like to add that
Yeah.
that both buildings put a lot of time and effort into the programs and studies. There was a lot of conversation with department leaders, counselors. So I just would like to commend both buildings on the job that they did.
You know, it's a big task trying to offer as many quality courses to students as we
And,
can.
and to reiterate what Ms. Dahl just said, the difference between a middle school
Oh, yeah.
program of study and a high school program
It's a
of
big
study.
difference.
It's night and day. And so what we talked about with high school administration is there's a lot to absorb there. And so think about, what that format could look like to ease that process, because it's a lot of information to digest all at once and make some important decisions. And so anything that can make it more pleasing on the eyes and easier to understand, the better for everybody.
Okay. Does anybody else have anything on new business A?
I just want to say thank you very much to Mr. Bierhoff and everyone that was involved in putting this together.
Okay, great. David, ready for a vote? Finish your typing.
His fingers are going
He's trying
a
to,
million miles an hour over my shoulder.
And I'm misspelling everything.
that's why we have spell
Spell
check.
check, man.
Except for
Spell check.
virus is serious, but other than that, you're good.
I can spell some pretty strange words being real, so,
I bet.
I'm good. Let's go for the vote. Dunaway,
Yes.
Heatherly,
Yes.
Dahl,
Yes,
Patrick,
Yes.
Zakor.
Yes.
Motion carries. Item B, approval to purchase a PV 200 with wireless connect system to track fuel with a purchase price of $16,518.85. Looking for a motion and a second.
I'll move.
Second.
Mrs. Heatherly and Mrs. Zakor. Is there any discussion? Dave, thank you for sending that email last week with a little description. That was super helpful.
I'd like to
Thank
again
you.
thank Mrs.
Mrs.
Nadolny for
Nadolny, yeah.
all the work that she did looking into that, and for Mr. Patry and his additional questions that was able to prompt additional information. I think it was very useful in
Great.
indicating why this is a necessary purchase for the district.
And can you just repeat that, just so that it's a part of the record, why this is gonna help?
So this system that we're trying to put in place is it's a fuel pump that requires the use of a code or a card to be able to use the pump. This will be located behind our bus garage, and it will be used to fuel the buses and any of our vans and trucks that we have. Currently, you have to be able to get into the locked area of the bus gate. But once you're in there, it's an unmanned pump that anybody can turn on and use. This pump will help us to be able to track all of the fuel that's being used. It'll track the vehicles, it'll track the mileage. And one thing that we did not note that Mrs. Nadolny told me, I can't believe we didn't talk about this, but it also helps provide all of the information that we need for our transportation report that's filed with the Ohio Department of Education.
Oh, there we go. We should have just started with that.
I know. So currently this is handled all by hand at the moment when
Oh my
she
gosh.
calculates the T1 information. So the time and effort saved. in
Time and
this.
effort and human error. I mean, that's a lot of calculating, a lot of, great, wow.
And we're not accusing that, we're not saying that this is happening here, but there is a chance, there's always a chance that fraud could occur in any business, any industry. And this right here is a way to help deter that fraud risk where somebody might come and take some fuel out. One thought that I had was somebody could be taking the truck home, siphoning off the gas and then bringing it back and then, oh, I'm just gonna fill up some more. And this system will be able to track, hey, this so-and-so's truck or bus is doing half the miles that everybody else's truck is filling up with. And so this can help us find irregularities in the gasoline usage, and it'll allow us to prepare. We'll know more on how much fuel we need. We don't have to buy as much fuel at a time because we do currently have 2 underground storage tanks that we fill with diesel fuel and unleaded gasoline. So overall, this is a system that is in place at a lot of districts. I believe that Troy had one, which is where Mrs. Nadolny is from, and she highly recommended the system. And there are other districts as well that have used it and said how great it is. So
Wonderful.
we got one right there.
Oh, well, good.
So
Great.
nice.
I do have a question on the, when I looked at the master services agreement, the thing I thought was interesting is that they don't provide any warranty whatsoever.
Really?
Yeah, and so I don't know if that's industry standard. I don't know what's market for these types of agreements, but I thought that, and I get that they're providing a third-party product in there and that there's manufacturing warranties related to the product itself, but their labor on the service side, they're disclaiming all of it, including that what they're doing isn't fit for a particular purpose. And so, again, that could be industry standard, but my thought would be is to run that by, before we approve this contract, run that by to see what is market and whether there is an ability to negotiate a warranty in there someplace, and that what the service provider is going to be fit for a particular purpose of what's occurring.
Did you have any experience with that, Mr. Stefani? Any knowledge of that with warranty?
Not the warranty piece. We had, we actually purchased it from the company that built it. So that one company was in charge
Correct.
of everything.
Yeah.
So they warrantied everything from hauling it to installing it and using it. So
Well, I think then the question would become, let's assume there is no warranty. Does that mean that would nix this system?
Can't we just keep the receipt?
well,
I mean, you know, that's,
The receipts not, I mean, so from my standpoint, like, if it's industry standard, whether there's a warranty or not, then if it's the standard, it's the standard. If it's not the standard and there is a warranty available somewhere,
I was trying to get it.
I'd want to understand it. I mean, and just makes me a little nervous, because then after that, you have to then prove that they didn't do something right. But when they've told you they're not gonna say it's fit for a particular purpose, it makes me apprehensive.
It's like when you build a house and use subcontractors. The builder says it wasn't me, it was a subcontractor, the subcontractor, you know what I mean? So it's that finger pointing. Hey, Dave, you might want to just ask Kim, since they had it in Troy, just ask her, I forget how many years she worked there, but you know, in the years that you were here, were there ever any issues? So that might be a good place to start too.
And if Mr. Stefani said that they had warranties at the other place, then too, maybe try to figure that out.
Yeah, because this is third party, his wasn't, so.
Maybe they use a different system, similar output, but different service.
Okay, if there's no further discussion, Dave, we're ready for a vote?
Looks like Kim Nadani texted me and says there is a 1-year warranty.
Oh,
Very
well,
good.
thank you for watching the meeting, Kim.
Thank you. Yeah.
It wasn't, and maybe I'm missing it, but I didn't see it in the purchase order, and it appeared disclaimed. I could be missing it if it was in the purchase order, because the purchase order was modifying it.
Thank you,
We can
Mrs.
double check if we wanted to. We
Ready for a vote?
Yeah.
Okay, Heatherly,
Yes,
Zakor,
Yes.
Dahl,
Yes.
Dunaway,
Yes.
Patrick.
No,
Motion carries. Item C, motion to approve using Retzel and Andrus as the board's bargaining attorney for negotiations with the Tipp City Education Association. Looking for a motion and a second.
I move.
I'll second.
Mrs. Zakor and Mrs. Dahl. Any discussion?
who was involved at the last time we negotiated? Was it Bricker and Eckler, or was it?
Yes. Mhm.
Why are we switching? Wouldn't we want them to have the institutional memory and the experience from the previous negotiations?
I don't know. I mean, I think boards kind of go back and forth. I don't know. I can't really answer that. Mr. Stefanik, have you ever been in multiple bargaining contracts with, do you know what I'm saying, with different firms?
Yes, districts at times, change. Although there are some districts that, are satisfied with the attorney they've had over time, and they stay with the same, attorney straight through. So there are examples of both, and I've been involved with both. I was with a district for almost 20 years, and we had, the same attorney, and I was with a district for a couple of years, and we were doing 1 year because it was, around the recession time, 2008, 2010. And so we were doing 1 year contracts to look at potential salary adjustments. And 1 year we used one attorney, and the next year we used a different one to see what the results would look like.
I think that's my concern, as well as in addition to the travel and the expense. So to me, Brookler and Eckler is local, and we don't know going in how long the negotiation meetings are going to take, or how often, or how frequently, because we don't know what the issues are in advance.
I will say that one time Helen came, that was a question I asked, what are the travel, what's the travel time? And they do have a Dayton office, so she does not charge us for the travel time. She only charges us for the same amount that Brooker would, because they also have an office in Dayton. So that's a good question, and there would be no additional charge. So, any other questions or discussion?
I guess my feeling is that I would prefer that we stick with the attorneys that helped us through the last negotiation. They're going to have a lot more contextual understanding of what the issues were. There's going to be less of a learning curve, less time spent trying to figure all those items out, which will save us money. And Bricker and Eckler is just as good as Retzel and Anderson. They have the background information, the previous history. And I think too, they have also some rapport in that they've dealt with the other people that were negotiating this last time as well.
Well, go ahead.
I'd just like to say, from being somebody who sat in negotiations, not in Tipp City, that teams on both sides change, very fluid. It's all about the work between the school, as in the TEA, and our admin. Generally, the lawyer is not a big engagement piece of the negotiations. And if it has to be that, there's some things going on relationship-wise between the two parties. If the lawyer does have to play a big part, I don't find it to be a big deal, and that's just based on my experience. Like I said, both sides, they rotate the players at the table.
So the amount of time that the lawyer spends at the table may not be the same, but the amount of work that the lawyer does outside, coming up with the package.
Well, I don't know if Tipp does it different, but when I was sitting at the teacher side, the union provides the package.
Yeah, because you were on the team, right?
I was on the teacher side, yeah.
on
So
the previous district.
we provide changes. The admin didn't provide anything to us.
Well, we can all have changes.
And also
Right.
too,
And at that negotiations, it was very amicable. There wasn't anything going on. There wasn't big changes at either side, really.
Well, I guess what's prompting a change from who we've been using for this to a different law firm?
well, I think that the question goes both ways because we had Russell and Anders in this district for, I don't even know how long, a long time. And then for a long time.
Decades.
Yeah, I really was gonna say decades. And then we switched to Bricker and Eckler, kind of out of the blue, you know? And Bricker and Eckler, I think, has been here, I'll just say 7 years. And so we've been using Russell and Anders again. So I just think, to Corinne's point, things are fluid, things change. Yeah.
It
But
doesn't
we
hurt
are-
having fresh eyes for our side either. Like,
We authorized 2 law firms. We've been using Russell Landers almost exclusively the last 12 months or so,
Mhm.
with the exception of a few items. And so on an issue like this, it just would seem to make sense to use the people who were doing it first. And so I guess I don't understand why we're switching, because they are one of authorized law firms, why we're switching.
Well, I mean, we might not. Right? No one knows how this is gonna turn out. I have said before, and I'll say it again, I really like the way Helen works. I really appreciate and respect that she takes everything back to a policy level. That is something that's really been missing in this district. And I've been very impressed with the work that she's done for us. She's efficient, she is professional, and I mean, I just have nothing but wonderful things to say about.
Timely, very timely.
Yeah, I just have nothing but wonderful things to say about, the policy things that she's brought forward to us as a board.
I mirror everything you just said about Helen. I'm not indicating she's not. I also feel the same way about Bricker and Eckler's representation. And I think that from an efficiency standpoint and saving money and expense, would be better off with Bricker and Eckler at this point.
Well, we spent a lot of money with Bricker and Eckler. Dave, do you happen to remember off the top?
No.
Don't feel, okay. So to say that it's gonna save money, you're kind of forecasting or projecting or assuming. I mean, Helen is very, very skilled and she has a lot of years under her belt. I'm sure that no one can guess it would be just that, a guess. I just know that we spent a lot of money the first time around with Bricker and Eckler. So that's all.
and she's not charging us travel.
Well, she charges us the same as Dave would because they have a Dayton office too.
Okay.
So she
So
just
she's not
charges
gonna
us
be an
Dayton.
additional charge.
Right.
Got it.
Well, that first year's expensive. First year we had a union, and then the contract was, up again, a couple years ago. And I agree with Simon. I think it's smart to diversify, and the institutional memory, which is, an issue that we have talked a lot about this year already. It seems like, why wouldn't we just continue with that? And
Well, we
everything you
might,
said about-
we might, right? We don't know.
Well, that's
So,
not what the motion is. The motion's to retain Helen for this purpose.
right, but we haven't voted, so.
No, I'm
Right.
just saying, everything you said about Helen, I concur with all the services she's providing to policy development or policy revision. I don't disagree with that.
Okay.
I just think that the continuity that Bricker and Eckler will be able to provide in this specific task, I think is important to the district.
Right, but to Corinne's point, the union will come in here with what they want, and that will be our, one more time?
I would expect that's what they'll
Right,
do. That's what a
absolutely.
contract negotiation is.
Right, so going to the institutional memory, it might be all, but no one knows. We have no idea of reading their minds. Assumptively, none of us have had conversations. So when they walk in here with that document, it's gonna be, I'll just kind of say a fresh start or like a new base, so. Any other comments? Dave, ready for a vote?
Zakor,
Yes.
Dahl,
Yes.
Heatherly,
No,
Patrick,
No.
Zakor,
Dunaway.
Dunaway,
Yes.
sorry.
Motion carries. Item D, policy 0168, minutes policy update, first read. Looking for a motion in a second.
I'll
This is
move.
just a first read.
Yeah.
There is no motion or a
We don't need a
second.
motion or a
We just
second?
go right into discussing it.
Okay.
Okay.
So we have discussed this at multiple meetings. Does anybody have anything to add or discuss with the yellow highlighted portion that Dave has for us?
I think Kellen did a nice job on it.
I think that this does allow us to move forward with
Yeah, it's pretty basic.
the suggestion that we use our recordings as our minutes.
Yep.
And then still provide a summary of the minutes and what occurred, and along with, and then I know that I'll put in timestamps to make it easier, and then where to provide those to the public if they ask for them. So,
Hey, Dave?
yes.
Did you notice, hang on for a second, is my computer doing something weird? It says policy 0168,
Mhm.
but then when I clicked on it, it said 0169. Was that weird?
Yeah, mine still says 168.
Okay, my computer did something funny. Never mind.
Okay.
I just refreshed it. I know it's 168, but it said 169.1. Why would that have popped up?
No idea.
Okay, sorry.
Have you clicked on the PDF that was
Mhm.
attached? Okay.
Mhm. It literally changed before my eyes. It was weird, so go ahead.
It's probably because you clicked on citizens may address the board, which is policy.
Maybe I did, thank you. I was like, I know we didn't have a typo. Okay, thank you, correct. Okay, anything else on item D?
Simon, do you think that this is gonna be okay?
I think it's fine.
Okay.
Okay, thank you. 10A, citizen comments. Does anybody know if there's anybody else that signed in? I don't think so, but
Teresa, you skipped one.
Skip one.
what did I skip?
This is where we added the TEE grant that,
Oh, why
Mrs.
did I need
Dahl,
to refresh my thing.
yeah, hit F5 and it'll be there.
Okay, sorry, go ahead, Dave.
It's not, I
So it's-
refreshed, it's not on mine
It's
either.
not, okay. So new business item E, which is I have it right in front of me.
TE.
It was originally item K, Simon, the T grant acceptance. So we're looking for a motion and a second for T grant acceptance.
I'll motion.
Second? Okay, I'll second. So Mrs. Dahl and Mrs. Dunaway, is there any discussion?
Yes, so the reason that I asked this to be moved is because of the literary footprints guided reading system. And I'm a big proponent of the science of reading and phonics. And when this said guided reading, my heart started to flutter. So can you guys just let me know how this plays with our curriculum?
So-
What is the interconnectedness?
Yeah, we currently use literacy footprints. There was a curriculum that was bought last time that the language arts curriculum was reviewed. It is guided reading. We know that that's not best practice at this point.
Right.
What Mrs. Bledsoe requested was the 4th grade kit for enrichment opportunities for kids in 3rd grade. We purchased the 4th grade kit last year. As you know, the elementary teachers kind of hoard their grade level stuff.
Yes.
And the fact that we don't use this at 4th grade,
Yeah.
to have this that was kind of along with the program
Mhm,
that could be used,
mhm.
we felt comfortable with doing that. I think I've shared with you in the past that our literacy team last year, we recognized that we've got to do something with systematic phonics instruction
Mhm.
and to get on board with science of reading.
Yeah.
That's why we're piloting Reading Horizons at 1st, 2nd, and 3rd grade, kindergarten through 3rd grade.
Mhm,
We have one classroom at each grade level piloting the Reading Horizons program,
mhm.
which is solely based on science of reading, OG.
Yeah.
I want to say Charlotte Lockhart is kind of her
Mhm.
philosophy with phonics instruction. So that's where we're at with that. It's purely an enrichment opportunity for our third graders to have access to these fourth grade guided reading books. And had we not gotten the grant opportunity, we would have been looking to purchase a second kit so that we had more materials to spread across third grade.
Something that I've been reflecting on a lot is that it's so hard to undo something, to put the cat back in the bag. And that once you have this kit or guided reading system that's based on balanced literacy approach, it seeps into the classroom in a lot of different ways. And just with my work in the past 3 years of trying to move to a science of reading, it's a hard transition for a lot of teachers because you have to part with your ways that you used to teach, and you have to say, I need to change what I'm teaching. And for a lot of teachers, it comes with that moment where you go, I didn't do the best, and I always only want to do the best. And the instruction that I gave previously wasn't the best instruction. Now, we didn't know that at the time, or we wouldn't have done that at the time. So when you're on the cusp of making a change and then getting something that's going to say guided reading, it's going to have leveled text, and that's a whole different, like, did you guys know that leveled text just popped out in 1940? Like, this guy said, hey, let's level text. It has no research, it has no basis, but still teachers want to know what level kids are on because that's what curriculum
numbers that say 10, 11 on the little book. Okay.
Yeah, because that's what curriculum say to do, right? This whole on your level thing, it started without any research, and it's so hard to break that speak. Even as a parent, it's so hard to break that speak. So that's just my struggle with this, is going, if I know something isn't good and it isn't high quality, is it worth putting in a classroom? Because then at some point you are going to have to undo.
Becomes a reinforcer.
Right, and it's hard. I'm just speaking for myself. It's so hard. And then people get mad at you because they go, but you told me last year I could use this, and this was district approved last year, and now it's not. And so, and those are battles that I am fighting myself every day, you know? So that's hard. And that's where I'm at. That's where I'm at.
Totally.
I
understand 100% where you're coming from. I appreciate the fact that we have someone who's advocating for this sitting on the board, because it is going to be a systematic
and expensive change.
And
because it requires a lot of pre-teaching of teachers.
And that's what it kind of excited us about the Reading Horizons program, is that it comes with that teacher's training. It comes with the professional learning.
So much of, yes.
It comes with the train the trainer model, so that you're building experts within your district, so that when you have changeover or you have a new teacher come in, you're able to train that teacher in, this is how we do phonics, this is how we do reading instruction. I would say that through the literacy team last year and the implementation of this pilot, there's a lot of excitement about this. You know, when I talked to Mr. Gingrich and Mrs. Smith last week, prior to a call that they were going to have with Reading Horizon, they were raving about it and talking about how their teachers were excited about it. And they had a professional development 2-hour session last Friday, the pilot teachers did. And they were emailing the trainer, thanking them and appreciative of the resources. So I think we're generating that enthusiasm, which could help make that change a little bit easier.
And that's how you make a change. It's little increments over time.
Right.
And by educating people why we're making that change. There's also Amplify CKLA is the only totally green lighted phonics program. And it just got green light. It's like green across the board in all the areas. So I don't know how many different pilots you're doing, if you're only piloting one or if you're looking at other ones. We didn't have a chance to look at Amplify. We didn't know about it, but it's the highest quality phonics instruction that's systematic, explicit, and builds. And I'm just excited to hear you guys are doing that front loading work. That is so important. Teachers feel respected and honored and they feel valued instead of just showing up, grabbing something and saying, here, try this, you know. It's a lot of instruction and it's a lot of time. And but it's, I mean, dyslexia testing starts in 2022. Dyslexia is directly tied to phonics instruction. It's basically a phonics screener when we talk about dyslexia.
Right.
So if we can start changing our instruction now, we don't have to worry about getting scores in 2022 and having collective heart attacks. When we look at that, we can start going, nope, we've started our phonics instruction and we're ahead of the curve.
So if I'm understanding this, because you guys have educator talk, which us lay people, you know, don't understand. So I'm trying to pick up on this. So right now, the literary footprints is what we're currently using at Broadway and on Broadway and Nevin Coppic. But Corinne, you're saying the science of reading is kind of.
So science of reading
I'm kind of confused.
Yes.
We are.
Yes.
So we're moving to science of reading. So August of 2020 this year.
Well, no.
Steve said
I'm trying to get the timeline to, you know what I
we
mean?
have to buy a second kit regardless for the current system. And this is a motion just to accept the,
And
I mean, I appreciate what you're adding, and I think
Yeah.
that's something that would merit maybe a conversation.
I had a question for Mr. Stefanik. So when are we moving towards the science of reading? Or what's the district goal? Because I understand what Mrs. Dahl brought forward. I heard Steve's comments and I'm just confused.
Okay, the science of reading is that there are, now again, this is a math guy talking about reading, just put that
Yeah,
out
just.
there as a disclaimer.
When is the district
It's-
forecasting that we're gonna, you know, is
Well, but no,
it this
but-
year, next year, 3 years?
Well, no, it's a process
Right.
of getting all of the components of effective reading instruction into the classroom.
Yeah, that's
So-
what she's
Right.
saying.
So what you don't do without effective planning, professional development, implementation strategy, you don't just walk up and go, by next Monday, where all
Right.
the classes are going to have the science of reading. And so what we have going on.
It's a process.
Right, and to amplify that process and put it under a microscope and make it bigger and more effective, that's where this training on the Ohio improvement process comes in. And then at the same time, I'm meeting with State Support Team 10, who's also working, I believe, with, Ms. Dahl in.
Laura Jones uses the
in her
K3
district.
decision framework that I
Yes.
created with my boss, so,
Yes,
and she's been presenting it, yeah.
right, and so we're gonna be working on that.
Thank
And
you,
so-
Rockstar.
So, yeah, so that brings in the science of reading, also the implementation strategies, all the different levels of implementation, which ties right into the Ohio improvement process. Mr. Verhoff and folks have, again, the front load, they've done some work even before the Ohio improvement process training got here. So the teachers are involved, they're having input, they're seeing what needs to be done. They've made their input suggestions. They see where the data says that they need to revise and enhance their reading instructional approaches, and that's where the pilot comes in. So when all these pieces start to come together, you will see added increments of enhanced reading instruction over time. And so we've got to get the training about the process of change instilled in the district. And at the same time, while we're studying new resources and new approaches, we talk about what we have and what we need to improve and or implement that's not there. We start bringing it all together, and then it's a building process.
So let me re-ask the question. So is Tipp City currently on the path of starting the process for science of reading?
Yes.
Okay, great.
And playing the pieces of the science of reading,
Okay.
yes.
Thank you.
Yeah, when I thought you were saying, when will all the pieces?
Well, no, I
be in
did ask
place
for a
and-
timeline because I see Corinne's point. You know, you don't, if your child is doing something wrong and you're going to have a conversation with them about corrective behavior, you don't just keep allowing it, and then go, okay, we're done.
No,
So it's
no.
kind of, you know.
No, this is about PD, and then when you're done with the training, then you
Mhm.
implement it. You use what you learned, you bring it back to your classroom, and your classroom is enhanced. And so it's about having that effective professional development to implement new strategies.
Because the pace of instruction looks a lot different.
I'm sure.
And what you're teaching students and what you used to do under guided reading is totally different. So it's hard for teachers So you have to really give them a lot of instruction about the change and the shift and what it's
like
gonna
you
look
start out
like.
being trained in nursing school is not what you do 10 years later.
Yes, and then as research
to challenge
evolves and you
yourself.
find better
Right.
methods, you do those. So this is where I'm at, Ann. So we found a better method. This literacy kit supports an old method that we know we shouldn't do anymore. And I'm just having like a personal,
Yeah.
right. And then I know too, the challenge of then taking something away from a teacher it's hard. Like nobody wants to do that, you
For
know?
that $2,000, I mean, that's a beautiful grant. So
Yes.
can that be,
So I
Shift,
understand
is there-
that all grants go through, they all go through Mr. Verhoff.
but if I may, Joanna, I just like
Sure.
to finish, thank you.
But I mean, if it's about accepting the money,
I know, but I was
Grants.
talking, so I
this
just,
is a conversation about academics and our curriculum choices.
so,
This was supposed to be just accepting the grant. That's what I'm suggesting. This could be a great conversation for a future work session.
well, that's what I'd like to ask my question, if you allow me. Thank you. So the $2,000, which is part of the TEE grant, which is really nice.
Yes.
So it would have to be specific, I mean, I don't know how that works. Is there, if this is approved, then it has to be
Used for exactly that.
exactly
Mhm. That's how the
earmarked
grants are
for
written.
that.
You can't change, yeah, it's illegal to.
Okay, so I see. So then how would you, if there was consensus, I'm not where Mrs. Dahl and Mr. Verhoff are on understanding the science and where you're going with your reading. But if that was something you chose to do, what would you do? Have to reapply for that grant money in under a different title, different category, different purpose?
When, does somebody want to answer?
I mean, here's what I'm really saying in a big picture. I'm sorry. $2,000 is $2,000. Whether it's used by this district or somewhere else, you want to use your dollars wisely.
Mhm.
If you're not, if what I'm hearing is the district is not excited about this guided reading system, isn't that being a little disrespectful of that?
I would say that we're
Do you
not
understand
excited about
what
it and
I'm
that we're not. So we're
Could it
gonna
be
submit the grant.
allocated
I
in a
wouldn't,
better way?
I'm sorry.
Could it be allocated in a better way? I don't know.
Right now, I think this is it. Probably the best way for us
Okay.
to allocate it because we have students who are in third grade who need this challenging text. They're beyond the third grade level, even though that's not,
Right,
we know that's not,
we don't have our
Best
vernacular yet, of
Right.
course, right?
but what I can say about the Literacy Footprints program and what I can say about our teachers and their reading instruction is that you can go back to 2016 and we have incrementally gone up in proficiency in reading at the third grade level since 2016. Each year, our percentage has gone up. So our teachers are doing a good job in the
Impacting.
classroom.
Yeah, very impactful.
And this transition is going to take time. It's incremental change. It's not a change that you can make overnight. And so with the pilot, we're developing that incremental change. We're building buy-in, we're building consensus, we're training our teachers. It's going to take time. And so this grant, this grade level kit helps us to bridge that. And it helps us to further develop our plan as to how we're going to phase this in.
I heard you say at the beginning that if they didn't get this grant, you were gonna be requesting us to buy the kit regardless.
Yeah,
Did I understand you to say that? To
From
me,
Mrs. Smith's funds or from my curriculum funds,
so
we would have.
not to
did that
minimize what this is and this investment. I understand what you're saying and I appreciate what you're saying. My point is, not to minimize it, but it's like having 2 first aid kits in the building. They have one, it'd be nice to have a second one. Mrs. Bledsoe has taken the time to invest in creating the application for the grant, which all go through Mr. Verhoff before they go off to, in this case, TEE or the Tipp Foundation, or wherever the grants go, they all go through him. And so I assume that means you endorsed it and now we've received the grant. I understand what you're saying, though, is that we need to buy into and transition into this new system. To me, it's like, this is what we need to get through what we have now until we start making that bridge.
Okay.
Any other comments on this item E?
Yeah,
but
so
that was-
I
sorry.
appreciate the bridge comment that,
Yeah, it's informative.
yeah.
Thank you. When do you start seeing that transition from the current system to a more science-based? What, I mean,
I
is
move
there?
to table that discussion, that right now, the only thing is we're asking whether we want to accept this grant. The transition aspect of it is a different discussion.
Although, if you're gonna bridge it in August, putting a guided reading system, an additional guided reading system into the classroom now, TEE, I think, only accepts grants from Tipp City. You could put in a different grant for a different system, to Ann's point.
So are you suggesting you're not in favor of us accepting this grant?
Oh, I would never tell anybody else how to vote. I'm
No,
just saying what
that-
my crux was. I really feel after this discussion with Mr. Veerhoff that I see that he has a plan. And it's not just it's not a first aid kit, you know, it's a bridge. And it's part of a bigger picture of addressing students that we currently have, knowing that in the future, we're going to change curriculum to meet the needs of future students as well.
Yeah, and I appreciate that information. It's insightful.
Okay, is there any further discussion on item E?
I just want to recognize all the people that apply for the grants. I know that takes time outside of their typical work duties to compile all that information in order to apply for the grant and then to be awarded.
And thanks for answering all my questions, Mr. Veerhoff. I get so excited about this stuff. I think it's the work that matters. So thank you very much.
Any further discussion on item E? Dave, we are ready for a vote.
Dahl,
Yes.
Dunaway,
Yes.
Heatherly,
Yes,
Patrick,
Yes.
Zakor.
Yes.
Motion carries. 10A, citizen comments. Joelle, was there anybody out there that you knew? Okay.
I think the door is locked.
Okay, that's fine. I mean, normally we've been doing them at the beginning, so that's fine.
we probably should have moved the paper back out there. And then
Yeah, no one knows.
For two of them.
Item 11A, superintendent and assistant superintendent report, Mr. Stefanik. First semester bullying incident report.
Yes, according to, I'm reading right off the paper here, House Bill 276, Ohio school districts are required to semi-annually post a number of reported bullying and harassment incidents that occur throughout their district. So you see the chart that was presented by all the principals and the incidents that they've seen in the first semester of this school year. And the second report typically comes out at the end of the school year in the summer.
As a side comment, did you guys see behavior reports just go down across the board, not just in bullying? Yeah, we saw a lot of that too.
Yes, regardless of the grade level,
Yes.
everybody said that during the pandemic that all behaviors have either improved or inappropriate choices have lessened, whatever way you want to look at it.
There's things we can keep.
That's right, yeah. So, and we don't know if that is related to,
Sure.
extra focus on, safety and health. And so they just wanted to.
And we think we
Stay
provided
positive.
a much better, stronger, repeated framework, like putting little dots in the hall where to stand, just to keep kids spaced. Also gave kids a target to stand on.
Mhm.
And I think those reinforcements, visual reinforcements, every day, structured, allowed a lot of kids to move through days without any behavior incidents where they couldn't make it 15 minutes before. And I think there's some of that structured environment framework reinforcers that, it gives us a moment to reflect and think, how can we help kids, with their behavior, those positive reinforcers that are nonverbal, just spots on a floor that work and are effective.
Maybe those are the kinds of things that will keep. You know what I'm
Yeah,
saying?
there's always things that we can learn.
There's things we'll-
And those are active conversations in education circles that,
Mhm.
yes, the pandemic, as far as, a real strain, on our lifestyles and our emotions and things like that, that it's caused us to change some very entrenched systems, I guess you would say. And so there are some takeaways that we can move forward and keep when this virus finally gets out of here.
That's awesome.
Okay, well, thank you very much. That takes us to item 12, which is miscellaneous, and item A, upcoming meetings. The next work session meeting will take place on Tuesday, February 9th, 2021, beginning at 5 p.m. The next regular Board of Education meeting will take place on Monday, February 22nd, 2021, at the Board of Education office, beginning at 6 p.m. So I'm looking for a motion and a second to adjourn.
I'll motion we adjourn.
Second.
Motion and second by Mrs. Dahl and Mrs. Zakor. Dave, we're ready for a vote.
Dahl,
Yes.
Zakor,
Yes.
Dunaway,
Yes,
Heatherly,
Yes.
Patrick,
Yes.
meeting adjourned,
at 8:09 PM.
8:09 p.m. Thank you. Where's the first one?
I apologize for the issue